My is not moving. Let me see. Here we go. Found it. So as you probably already saw from the from the flyers, we want to kind of, my vision is to combine what we already saw, kind of like complementary what we saw from the other two presentations, and all about women in academia. So briefly, review the statistics about women representation.
What room are you looking for? 529?
I'm hearing someone. Okay. Perfect. So I will continue to explore, and I'll speak louder just in case somebody can't hear. Explore the different intersectionality of factors that can impact the women's representation, and then illustrate the process of what it means to be successful for different people using different narratives, including my own. So when I was thinking about this presentation, I said, okay, let's go back to when we decided to go to grad school with a goal. I always wanted to be a researcher, and the whole vision to be a researcher is that you want to get a tenure position, you want to be a tenure professor. So when we talk about career paths, there's a time, right? So we have a career pathways that you get your tenure track job within 6 years of your PhD, and then you get a tenure within 11 years of your PhD, and then you get full professorship within 7 years of getting your tenure, right? So then we have, as we all do, we have this time frame. Okay, so this is my roadmap. We are all here for a reason. We all have a PhD. We decided to create this vision. I got it. And then we get more information, like women in academia, like what do we know about quantitative data, right? So when you are a woman, just a woman and wants to go to academia, you get that mentorship where your mentors and supervisors and sponsors and everyone is telling you, be mindful that there's a few obstacles a lot of obstacles that many women face, and a lot of seems to be in the first few years, the first promotion, the first things. Like in here we're quoting a study that found that 8% of women in early tenure jobs are promoted what 10 of men are, right? But we know this. We continue to gather this information and continue to. So, and then we have more data, right? And this was presented by Dr. Jennifer Stinson the first time that she presented.
Right, so you started and you didn't tell me to record.
Come again? Okay. So then we have, as I was mentioning, then we have more data to illustrate, as Dr. Stinson mentioned before in her presentation, providing this slide, that there's like this slow progression of papers, number of publications that women will have throughout the years, but since the first academic appointment. Right, and this graph is beautiful because it actually takes into consideration the intersectionality of being a woman and being a mom in those few like first years, right? So then we have more data. Let me see right here. Okay, hopefully everyone can hear me because I can't hear anything now. So And then we have more data that says, talk about intersectionality, and we have been advised about these different disparities where women tend to be overrepresented in assistant professors or in the non-tenure track or in structure or research scientists. Our progression to associate in full professorship is slower. Then when we add the intersectionality of being a woman of color, the data looks a little bit more smaller. We have Asian women with 4.9, African American women have 3.6, we have Latinas, Latinx women 2.7, and then we have the more intersectionality of being a woman and a mother in academia, and all those factors, which is something that we already have discussed, we already know. So this is the data, and if you're wondering about where I got this reference, this is the citation. It's a data collected from Australia, Canada, Europa, India, Japan, and United States, but the data that I'm presenting is specifically for the United States. So within this setting, we already come to our first orientation, first faculty orientation. We have the professional standards, right? We know these already, and the faculty is letting us know this is what you need to do to be taken seriously and to be successful. We know this. You want to be productive in your research. You wanna do creative activities. You wanna teach, and you want to provide services, activities within the hospital, within the states, and within the rest of the community, right? Within your state and outside. And then we also have recognition to certain activities. This one is specifically for UCLA that mentions we want to promote diversity. And again, it all depends on how we define diversity, but all of that is there. I'm not saying anything new. We know this already. And then to be taken seriously, basically what we're saying, what we're seeing, and what we have been told, we need to publish, we need to get grants, we need to make sure that we have collaborations, and we need to make sure that we get invited to conferences to disseminate our work and obviously represent the university. So far, we know all these professional standards, right? And then to be taken more seriously, words from the wise, and this is, we got this information during the faculty orientation. It was not in the slides, but it was discussed that you wanna have excellent teaching evaluation, excellent peer evaluations, and you also have to explicitly convey what you have done to merit a promotion if this is not illustrated in your CV, because some individuals, including myself, we do a lot of community outreach, we do program development, we do a lot of admin work, we have all those different characteristics, like different qualities or tasks that some of us do, some of us don't, but they are encouraging us to just say explicitly, right? So this is within the caveat that if you're too explicit, depending on who you are, you might be bragging or not, right? So this is like all the concepts that we all have encountered and will continue to encounter. So far I'm saying nothing new. And then the aspect is that when we combine what we learned initially, right? We're saying that a lot of women do not have difficulties getting to full professorship, getting tenure tracks, like the first promotion to assistant professor is really difficult, or getting that first merit credit is really difficult. I have been contemplating and talking to my tribe of awesome women here in California and LA and throughout. And I said, like, we need to figure out what's going on. And there's also a lot, and what we have discussed is that there's also a lot of qualitative data that is telling us a little bit more of what's going on from the first human experience. This is basically the narrative component. So this is a reference from the Leaking Pipeline. This is the Columbia Spectator. And I just going to highlight a few narratives, and again, I want to be mindful of time. There's a lot of blogs of academia, women in academia, so you can name them. So I'm just going to take a few, and this one caught my eye because this junior faculty, and she is Latina based on her last name, Area Gomez. She's saying that there's something about a narrative that she's feeling that people are disseminating that she's not seen as independent. And she was a previous fellow there. She has done her own work and stay in the same institution. And there's something about this independent narrative. So she went to the chairman of the chair of the department, and said, like, what's going on with this narrative? And what the narrative here, as you can read in the paragraph, is like, she went to the chair and they said, well, you need to illustrate your grants. You need to illustrate that you are doing innovative work. You need to illustrate that there's papers being published. And she went back and she's like, I have my own papers. I have my own grants. So let's just have this conversation again. So how can I fix this perception? And then the chairman said, well, you have to be invited to conferences. You need to disseminate your data. You need to represent what you're doing here to gain this independent narrative that you are that you're sensing that is not there. And she goes back to the chairman, the chairperson, and says, I have done that. So what do I need to do? And what the narrative here says is that he told her that she needed to leave. After getting all her KO1, R1, publishing, NIH, so basically going through those professional standards that we all are instructed to follow, something was not adding up, and the chairman asked her to leave. So it's like, okay, so that's an interesting narrative. Then we have another narrative from the Chronicles of Higher Education, where this professor lost tenure. She was denied tenure. And one of the faculty, based on the narrative of this blog, is that, I need to tell you, Anne, he said, why you lost your tenure. You're a cute piece of skirt, and you're a feminist writing about sexuality, and that frightens them. So towards and this is like a huge, this is all about women in academia, and I invite you all to read all the pages, is that it's saying that she did not get an official explanation for why they denied her tenure, but that she got an official one. Apparently someone said that she brought a toy, and you can read what the toy is there, to class, but that wasn't accurate. And then the other component of the second paragraph is about the peer review. It says that, I can't say I wasn't warned. When a senior professor read my critique of Freud, he called me into his office and issued a blunt warning. I will support your tenure if you remove what you write about Freud. If you don't, I won't. And she didn't, so he didn't. Right? So it's a part of like, okay, so she is maintaining true to herself, and they're giving her in this narrative warnings that are going to help her or to get the tenureship or not, right? So at this moment, we're still getting all this narrative. And again, this is going back to what we discussed, that peer evaluations, peer support, and collaborations are really important for promotion, right? So there's something going there in the narrative. So given that we're all scientists, and I know that, not to say that qualitative data is not scientists, but we can have that conversation later. It's like, okay, So if you don't believe qualitative data, let me give you quantitative data about all those experiments that have been performed, and I'm just going to highlight one, and why did John get the STEM job rather than Jennifer, when both of them have the same CV and the only thing that is different is the name, right? So, but we have heard about these experiments, and then when we intersect different identities, like women of color with specific name, my name is Mirella Diaz, so you can definitely know that I might be Latina, right? So it triggers something, right? And we know about this. So I just wanted to highlight one specific experiment just to engage in this conversation, right? As we said, like, what are the heuristics and the biases that are taking place here? So when we're talking about power of heuristics and biases, I have been contemplating a lot, and granted, this is my second year as faculty, so I'll let you know why I have been exploring these topics in addition to doing my research, my science, my community outreach, my mentorship, my supervision, and all those components, is because I needed to know, like, what's the environment. And after listening to a lot of podcasts, and I came about this book, which is Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. And I was just reading it because I wanted to learn more about System 1 and System 2. And for those of you that want to know more about the book, I highly recommend it, because these are psychologists. These are coming from cognitive psychology, experiments, neuroscience. And the reason why I'm bringing up this book is because, first of all, it's written by a man, and this man is talking bluntly about, this book is about biases of intuition. And so my aim is for I'm reading Water Cooler Conversations. Again, where does the narratives of different people tend to be disseminated? Improve the ability to identify and understand the errors of judgment and choice in others and eventually ourselves by providing a richer and more precise language to discuss them. In at least some cases, an accurate diagnosis may suggest an intervention to limit the damage that bad judgment and choices often cause, right? So if you, like, this is in page 4. So power of heuristics. So he had, during the first chapter, he talks about his collaboration with Amos Tversky, right? And he acknowledges, he dedicates the book to him because he passed in his mid-50s before they won the Nobel Prize in Economics. So one of the, just a quick note, I'm hearing someone in the background. So in the introduction, what I love about this book is that he goes very, very in depth about the process of how the collaboration, the research question happened, right? They're both men, but the component is that they were just like having this conversation, and from conversations that were personal, they curated a whole science on heuristics and decision making in particular. And they were like trying, and they acknowledged that their judgment were biased. So they wanted to know if their biases were also experienced by other people, including scientists, right? So one of the experiments that they did, and they have done a lot, is that they have loved to create in their papers to give the example that is priming different potential cognitive schemas, and then providing that in a paper. So this one says, an individual has been described by a neighbor as follows. Steve is very shy and withdrawn, invariably helpful, but with little interest in people or in the world of reality. A meek and cheery soul, he has need for order and structure and a passion for details. And granted, I know that I'm talking to a lot of clinicians, so I know that we are thinking about DSM-5 and possibly like neurodevelopmental disorders we don't have access to now. So that's not the point here, because here is about how is that description impacts your vision, your perception, your projection of what that individual should be occupationally. So then the aspect is Steve more likely to be a librarian or a farmer, right? And what they encountered was that the vast majority said that he will be a librarian, right? And for them, this was a fascinating finding because they started bringing the stats. They started bringing the base rate. They said, did it occur to you that there are more than 20 male farmers for each male librarian in the United States? And then what they found is that the participants ignore relevant statistical facts and rely exclusively on resemblance. So this is where I was thinking, and I thought to myself, if there's a power of resemblance, who do I resemblance specifically, right? Am I what you're looking for? What I wanted was the cartoon that many of us have seen, that you have like a table of 10, 11, this is a corporate office, 10 men in suit asking one woman in the other corner, so what can you bring to our company? But I couldn't find that cartoon. Instead, I found this one. But again, if it's all about resemblance, I put a projection onto you based on resemblance. So I don't look like you, you don't look like me, therefore I'm not going to see you as a professor. I'm not going to see you as a scientist. Actually, I see you more as someone in a community college, someone in a community hospital, or doing nonprofit work, right? And then the power of and then the author of Dr. Daniel Kahneman, he also talks about the power of memory. So it's kind of like I look in my memory, who, if I don't resemble you and vice versa, who do you resemble? However, what we know as well is that in academia, in this or any other higher corporation, how many women in general, and then when we bring the intersectionality of women of color and all the intersectionality, because we're not the same, are they going to be able to look for someone that say, oh, she might resemble this individual and this individual had these qualities, therefore I see you as a professor? The likelihood that I have seen is very slim, right? So, and then I said, perhaps not. And I said, at this moment, it's a double whammy. So I was like, so we have heuristics, we have biases, we have the power of resemblance, right? I don't see a lot of people that look like me when I go to meetings. And then I said, well, I also know that I have to do way more many things, and the data has shown it, both qualitative and quantitative data that has shown it. So then I was like, okay, so I have two choices, I thought. And this is all happening in the last year, right? And I said, do I leave academia or I become one of them? I'm hearing someone. So I have been in both. In my first year of faculty, I have been in both choices, right? And again, it goes to the literature and to data that says that there's a lot of things that happen in the first few years that a lot of women are lost, right? So quote unquote lost. So for me, and I'm not speaking for all women or all women of color or even all Latinas, because we're all very different. But for me, I said, do I leave academia? And I consider it. And then I have a come to Jesus moment with my tribe. And they say, no, you need to stay. You have your grants, so you need to stay. And then I was like, okay, so I'll become one of them. And one of them, for me, when we think about academia and what we see in academic medicine settings, I see a lot of white men. So I said, okay, so I am a psychologist, I study behavior. Let me see what are all the qualities of the men that I see, and I'm going to channel them, right? Sure. So what I encountered was that I encountered the power again of narratives because I was called mean and combative, right? So, and that happens a lot. There's a lot of blogs that talk about the angry woman, the mean woman. You should be more subversive women. You should be more caring women. So you have those gender roles and cultural roles and everything intertwined. But what I realized during this time is the power of narratives combined with actual power. So, and I'm telling the mean comment in particular because that actually happened during a lab meeting. And I'm sorry. And my male colleague made a comment about my behavior in the lab meeting, saying like, oh, Mirella, you're so mean. And granted, I was just asking one of our students, what's the status of your paper, of this and so forth, and please let me know because you are avoiding me and you're not telling me what's going on. The part was that my behavior of being assertive in my communication was interpreted by a white man as mean in a lab meeting full of a lot of people, right? And then we have the extra point where in that meeting, the supervisor agreed with him and said, oh, Mirella, you are mean. And I was like, okay, wait a second, because I know the power of narratives. We all know them very, very well, right? So if two individuals that have a lot of power are conveying and disseminating in a meeting that I'm mean, is going to disseminate past that office or past that conference room. And then when it gets disseminated to others, the other people are not going to say, well, give her the benefit of the doubt, you don't know, so forth. No, they say, well, ella es Latina, she has that crazy hair that she doesn't want to like pull down to be more slick. So, and then Latinas tend to be a stereotype as aggressive and feisty and sassy. So you have all those powers of narrative combined into one, and then the power of the people that start disseminating that narrative, right? So how does that impact what we're talking about? Remember the words of the wise. You want excellent evaluations from others. And one of the case studies that I presented, it mentioned the power of peer evaluations. And it's all about collaboration. So let me ask you, because I asked myself and I have told others, will you collaborate with a mean person? Someone that's combative? No, you won't. The mean interpretation of my behavior was inaccurate, but I knew it wasn't going to be challenged and that it was going to hurt my career because no one would want to collaborate with me. So at that moment, again, I had another moment to come to Jesus, and I said, okay, I have a choice here. And I'm like, okay, so I have a lot of components, a lot of dynamics, a lot of structures, and I have my own things, because we all do. We know about daily microaggressions from peers, from students, from top down. So it's like top down and bottom up. So I said, am I what you're looking for then? And I said, I'm not sure, but I need to take care of myself, because my health is deteriorating in this process. So I need to figure out a way that, if this is my passion and this is what I want to do, I want to create, I want to do amazing science in health disparities, in Alzheimer's disease, and open doors for anyone, or just help them to navigate the system, I need to be healthy. I need to be well. And I need to be who am I in this process? And I'm saying that because I was pre-hypertensive for 2 years as a fellow.
I have to listen.
I'm hearing someone. So I was pre-hypertensive for 2 years straight, and I was like trying to figure out, this is not good, because we're all scientists, and all of us that study, aging, we know cardiovascular diseases, we know the literature on it. NIH is talking very aggressively about CVD. They're talking about stress. We're having funding mechanism. So I knew at that moment, based on what I studied, that if I didn't take care of my physical and emotional well-being, I wouldn't make it. And I'll be like, I need to get out before I completely deteriorate. So what did I do? This is what I was talking about before. We know about stress, that is really good, but more science is telling us where is optimal performance with compared to stress and the duration, the severity. And this is a recent study coming from UC Berkeley that is saying that if you have acute, and we know this, acute stress will give you basically neurogenesis in the hippocampus, growing new cells to improve memory. But if you have prolonged state of stress, that inhibits the development, the neurogenesis in the hippocampus. And the science is stress is getting very compelling evidence about how the hippocampus is targeted, right? They're starting to study the mechanisms, but also the telomeres, right? DNA is also being studied, right? So we have science that is telling us that our levels of different stress, of high stress, right, is basically killing us slowly, right? We have known this for years, but now the science is catching up, right? So within a very stressful environment, I was listening to a podcast yesterday while walking to the gym, trying to be healthy. I was listening to this podcast that is talking about science, and I have to look at the article. Science that is talking about if you have two different women in the same stressful environment, the group of women that are able, right, that find their unique ways to modulate that anxiety and that stress, perform better and do better, right? And I was like, because we're still in academic setting, which is really stressful based on the standards of getting tenure. So I said, I have to think about this very clearly, and I need to, and again, we're all scientists. I was trained in Boston University. So scientist practitioner model, we know all about it. We know science. It's like, okay, I have to gather data before I can have a way. And this all data happened in last year. So I started a journey where I said, I need to figure out what is stressing me out. So why do we know? CBT, my ABCs, my antecedents, my behaviors, and my consequences. So let's do functional analysis, which is just let's create awareness, right? So we're therapists because we're all clinical psychologists. So I said, what is stressing me out and how am I coping with it? And is it working? So far, I know that I'm not coping well because I'm not sleeping. I'm gaining weight, so I'm eating poorly. Cortisol probably is off the roof. And no, I'm not coping well with it. So what is stressing me out? And what I had to come to realization is that I had this perceived sense of that I did not belong here. And that it was eating me inside slowly. And again, we can debate whether this is my own perception. And we can bring the combination of a lot of different messages or helpful comments towards your professional development when they say you need to figure out what to do with your hair. It needs to be cleaner. You don't look like a doctor. It's like, okay. It needs to be cleaner. It's like, you need to be less enthusiastic with your patients. It's like, I had no idea what that means. And when I pressed more, they didn't know either. They just knew that I was different and I did not fit. So because I didn't fit with their perception of what a doctor, a clinical neuropsychologist looks like, they wanted to put me in that box. And I said, I don't belong here, right? So with that in mind, now I'm able to name it. So the power of language, the power of awareness, I'm able to name it. And then I said, okay, if that's stressing me out, I'll have to work with this sense of belonging. And in the meantime, behavior activation. I need to get healthy. NIH, the World Health Organization, is giving us all the data that we need. We need to exercise. We need to eat healthy. We need to sleep well. We need to stress more. We need more sense of community. All those factors have been currently being studied with NIA in particular regarding aging, right? So what did I do? I decided to go back to the gym. And this is with a caveat that for those of you that know me, if those of you that don't, now you know that I love bodybuilding. I lift a lot of weights, right? I injured my back and I had to engage in more yoga and all those type of exercises. So when I had to go back to one of my passions, which is building muscle, I had a feeling. I was like, I don't want to. And there's like, why am I blocking myself to doing something that I know is going to make me be happier and content? And we know the impact of exercise in your heart, in your brain, in your health, and your mental health. And I had to uncover the realization of, well, if I don't belong here, being more smaller, because I lost a lot of body, a lot of muscle size, imagine if I add another component for anyone to use against me in their narrative. She looks too masculine. Why would we want to collaborate with her? So once I was able to name it to like awareness, to bring that to awareness, I said, okay, now I know what I'm working with. And I was able to go back to the gym after I resolved that barrier. So that's in terms of the journey of becoming healthy. And I said, like, this is a constant journey. So I'm still doing my exercise on a daily basis, but it's because I had to prioritize my health, my mental and physical health in order to do so. And when I come to work, I see that I'm happier, I'm more compassionate, I'm more centered. I don't get too upset. You know, I might get upset, but my reaction is way more lower than before, and we can engage in conversations and so forth. And then I have this sense of community in my lab, with my peers, with my colleagues, with my students, and everything is going well. And I'm like, perfect. So I'm seeing some aspect of it. And then towards the journey of authenticity, this is the one that I continue to work with. I delve into the science of happiness. Believe it, there is science of happiness. There's a science of belonging. There's a science of vulnerability with Brené Brown. Love her. She's a social worker. She's a scientist. She does ground theory, and she studies vulnerability, bravery, and courage. And she is a professor in Houston, I believe, right? So and Sean Acord, he's also a psychologist who did 10, 11 years in Harvard doing this type of happiness research. So if we're looking for science, because it's all about credibility, I'm looking for science as well, and how that makes me become better with my true self. Because what I have found is that in these experiences, and I apologize for the moving forward, is, here we go, is that through learning, through podcasts, through being more open about, okay, who am I? Let me show you my true self, rather than this persona that I thought that it was the only persona that made it in academia. Like through this process, I have been able to be more authentic, in my relationships have been more authentic. So now I'm seeing that positive sequela, that dominant effect, where all the collaborations that I have are genuine. Like I have that one-on-one. So I had to go through that journey in order to find good collaboration, people that have the same values and traditions and commitment to my vision of health disparities to move forward, right? Rather than, like I was instructed at the beginning, just make collaborations and do this and do any chance that you have. I felt that that wasn't authentic, because I know that I might not want to work with everyone, and everyone might not want to work with me, and that's okay. It's like but we can be colleagues by no means, right? So I decided to have my own case study towards the journey of authenticity, and it continues. It continues because I'm not perfect. I will never be perfect, and that's completely okay. And I'll surround myself with colleagues, scientists, clinicians, educators, community stakeholders, everyone that, even my friends, that I have asked them, please challenge me. And when you see something that is not consistent with what I'm telling you that I want to be. So there's a lot of ego that I have to resolve, because that ego can be gigantic, and that ego is building pain. And we all have our pain in academia. We all do, regardless of who you are. And what I say is pain, and pain will have a function, it will come out, right? So if you feel disrespected, what happens? I'm going to tell you, like, no, don't get it twisted, right? So those aspects of the ego that I had to uncover in order to not get triggered in an environment that has a lot of triggers already, right? So when we're talking about that science that says you can be in the same, two women can be in the same environment, but one has found a way to be happier, and she's able to manage it. And this is a little like a women's study. Is like the system remains complicated, and we don't have time to talk about it, because we can spend years and times to talk about the infrastructure. But when we come to the individual, I had to go back to myself and unsolve all those narratives and all the traumas that I encountered in grad school, internship, fellowship. And again, it's not because, oh my God, like she had a lot of trauma. Anything that causes you stress can be traumatic, right? It's not like, we're not talking DSM-5, I'm not pointing fingers, but it's just like the nature of having an interdisciplinary, like talking to a lot of people, there will be some misunderstanding. Or what I have seen a lot is that a lot of projections of their fears onto you, and there's like, don't do that, you don't belong here, you're not going to be a good psychologist, and so forth. So all those messages get accumulated, and you start believing it, and instead of resolving it, I just like, oh, let me show you wrong. But this defense mechanism was causing my health, and I had to go back at it, because I need to be here. I want to be here for as long as I can, right? Con Dios por delante. So, and again, and this is me wrapping it up, this is only recommendations, right? My journey is not your journey. And what I have done might not work for you. And again, I know that there's a lot of intentionalities. I go to the gym on a daily basis, and I had this conversation with with one of my friends. I was like, take this with a grain of salt, because I'm not a mom, and I don't know those dynamics. So I don't wanna be saying like, you should go to the gym, because, and I'm like, no. So these are my own journey, what has worked for me, and my goal here is that just a narrative of what I have done in the past year in order to wake up every day, be thankful, be grateful, be happy for all the opportunities that I have, all the amazing individuals and family and friends that I'm developing throughout this year and hopefully moving forward. And then I said to myself, well, am I what you're looking for? And I'm like, I'm not sure just yet, but I'm going to be myself, and I know that there will be a group of us out there that are going to resonate with that authenticity, and then our community is stronger, our science is stronger, and our education and clinic is stronger. So that, with that being said, it's 10:49. I want to be mindful of time, and if anyone has any comments or questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them now. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. So if anybody has any questions, now is the time that you can unmute your microphones and share them with us. I'll leave our microphone on in case any of the folks here in our room have any questions for you.
And I know that I talked a lot in a combination of different factors. So please know that I won't be offended, and no one wants to ask a question.
Oh, I have somebody in the chat. Hang on one second. So from Dr. McDonald, such a powerful message, and thank you for sharing your story. From Paola, thank you. I was going to say that.
Thank you.
All right, well, thank you very much. This was a wonderful presentation. We're very glad that you can, oh, sorry, another question from Dr. McDonald here. How do you deal with microaggressions in the work environment?
So, que conste, sorry, I'm being bilingual right now. This is something that I'm still working through, and I doubt that I'll figure this out. Again, I'm junior faculty, but what I have done that has worked for me is that I have made, again, like a different case study where I said, okay, what are my triggers? And all these microaggressions are triggers. And the fact is that they're going to be there because that's the nature of microaggressions. So what I have worked with is to work with my reaction to the microaggression. So when I went to therapy, I said, I want to make sure that I don't go from 0 to 100 real quick. And I need to manage that reaction of wanting to fight back because I'm a fighter. And I said, well, I want to acknowledge and validate my emotion, but at the same time, understanding that if I give in to that microaggression, even it can be unconscious of this individual or group of individuals, they go home with no problem. They have their house, they have their families, and don't think about it even once. So they're sleeping well while I'm over here planning a strategy, be like, I'm going to fight back, and my anger and my reaction, my whole system is being reactive. So what I have done is like, you know what, this is something at a structural level that we need to continue having a conversation. In the meantime, I'm going to work on the fact that this is a microaggression. I label it. I know myself. I'm going to validate that I was angry and disrespectful. But in the meantime, that I will not give you the power to over my emotions, over my life, and then mental and physical health. So it's a long story, a long answer to the question, because it's not that simple, but that has been my method. It's not perfect, and people that know me, it can vary day by day, but it's a daily commitment for myself. Okay. Any other questions? And thank you so much for the support. I really like being here with this message has been nerve-wracking, because one of the things that I have been trying to work on is visibility. I don't like visibility. I don't like for people to know my face. You can know my name, but never my face. So I appreciate the feedback. I truly do. Any other questions?
Okay, well, thank you so much for your presentation. It was wonderful. And thank you to everybody for joining us this afternoon. Well, for us this afternoon, for others maybe this morning. And we will see you all next month for our next Taquitos talk. And Dr. Strutt will be sending out the information about that as the date gets closer. But thank you all very much.
Thank you, everyone.